Hi, this is Kris Castro, and this is the Lead Upside Down podcast, where leaders are sharing how they are leading in non-traditional ways based on Jesus's leadership style. If you have any questions, go back to the trailer episode and that should answer them. But right now, grab your favorite beverage and settle in. If you have any questions or comments, especially if something resonates with you, feel free to go to my website, begin2shift.com, and set up a coffee and conversation meeting, and we can chat about it in more detail. All right, enjoy. Well, I am excited to have Mike Henry here. He is my podcast guest today. Mike Henry is the founder of Follower of One, and I have known Mike Henry for, I think it's going on 3 years now. I started off as just kind of a helper, do what needed to be done in the community. And then we started growing and I moved into a community manager position, and now we are exploding. And it's just been really fun to walk with Mike throughout this Follower of One ministry. And the reason I wanted him as a podcast guest is because the entire time I've worked with him and known him before I started working with him, he has really been demonstrating the lead upside down style that Jesus did. And so, Mike, I'd really love for you to talk a little bit about what lead upside down means to you and how it affects your life and work.
Certainly, Kris. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on this show. So for me, leading upside down, I think means serving something other than myself. I'm not trying to get everyone to serve me, nor am I necessarily trying to serve all the people, but rather we're all working for a common goal and we're trying to serve one another so that the whole team achieves that goal. And that's what I think of when you talk about lead upside down.
And as you've been leading upside down all of these years, tell me a little bit about what advice you might give others who are interested in either starting or doing the lead upside down better in their life and work.
Well, I think the best advice I can give people, save them some of the mistakes that I made. I think many people who have worked with me in the past would be surprised that I was talking about some of this stuff just because of some of the leadership mistakes that I made in my past. But I believe the best advice I can give anyone is we work for Jesus. Let's ask him what he would have us do. It must require that we respect and treat others well. It must require that we help them move forward in their life and accomplish their goals, because that's the way Jesus did this. And that this kind of checking in with the boss is what puts me back on track.
That's so true. Well, I want to kind of transition into a deeper segment to be able to drill down and talk about specific stories and examples, and for you to kind of share your heart around your journey of leading upside down. So we're going to move into that now. So, Mike, as you have been doing that, tell me a little bit about the stories, the ups and downs, the mistakes you made that you alluded to, that you've gotten to this point now, obviously not perfected, but you are so much more mature and walking in Jesus's leadership style. Share a little bit about that.
Well, I think the biggest mistakes I made, especially much younger in my career, like until last week or whatever, the biggest mistakes I make are when I think that everybody's supposed to have my answer. And, I don't want to be that person who always has the answer for everything. In fact, I hope we always come up with better answers. And so I want to create an environment where we're taking chances together, we're screwing up a little bit together, everyone's being transparent and trying to come up with the best ideas. And what I found is that oftentimes when there's a disconnect, it's because I haven't been clear about what my vision is, or what we're trying to accomplish. When I get to where everybody's doing something other than what I thought we should be doing, I probably didn't do a very good job of communicating what I thought we should be doing. And we need to have those kinds of understandings in advance so that people are free to get creative and to bring their best self into the effort. If everybody's just doing what they were told, then everything gets kind of automated and it becomes disappointing. You and I've had some of these conversations because I feel like, if I don't communicate well, then my job is correcting everyone all the time. And I don't want to be that guy. So I want to come up with better ways of explaining what it is we're trying to accomplish so that people are free to make choices.
One of the things that I appreciate, and for those of you that don't know, I'm on Mike's leadership team, and we have leadership meetings usually twice a month or so. And in our leadership meetings, Mike has picked a team where every one of us in our own right is, shall I say, independent thinking. We all have minds of our own. None of us are yes people, so it's been really interesting to walk with the team and Mike through challenges that we've had through
Yeah.
Mike basically saying, hey, I want this done, and me assuming he meant this. And then I get it done, and Mike's like, and
Yeah.
then we've had to walk through all of that. But the humility that you walk in, Mike, along the way is one of the things that I value about you. And Jesus made so many references to humility, the first will be last, the last will be
Hmm.
first. And there's an element of humility in the kingdom that leaders either don't understand or don't recognize as part of a leadership skill. And granted, you're not perfect, but you do tend to lean on humility, which is really, really wonderful to see in a leader.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Kris. It's with effort. I mean, family members and people who've worked for me in the past might have a little issue with you. They're probably making comments right now on your podcast, but I've God's been faithful to not be shy about pointing out when I'm wrong, and it kind of helps me if I can screw up early every day. Then I remember that the objective isn't to be perfect. The objective is just to do the best I can. And so I like to make my mistakes in gear. I like to be trying to do something when I mess up. And, I expect I'm going to mess up, and we do the best we can to fix it and keep moving.
Absolutely. Well, share a story or some sort of situation where leading upside down was really, really hard, but the right thing for you to do.
Something that comes to mind. I had an employee once a long time ago that after we tried and tried several different ways, I actually had to let them go. I that their attempts at trying to do the job they had been hired to do, I had done a poor job of hiring. I hadn't hired the right person. I hadn't given them clear direction. We worked through several of those things. It must have been a very frustrating time for them. It was challenging for me, but when I notified them that we were going to have to make a change, then I kind of tried to shift into a mode where I was a friend and could help them find another job. I made suggestions about the kinds of things I thought they would be good at and where they might look to work. And some of those, there have been a couple of people where I've had to ask them to leave. And some of those were ugly messes, but others of those, in this one in particular that I'm thinking of, it turned out to be a positive thing for that person. They ended up with a better job doing things that they liked better. They didn't have a good understanding of their own abilities, and neither did I. But as we got clear on it, we had to make changes. And what I felt like I was doing was working in their best interest, also in the company's best interest, but working in their best interest because the company has more resources to survive than an individual does.
And with the ministry, follower of one, how, because I know one of the things that you like to do in terms of helping people become the best marketplace ministers that they can, because as you always say, we're all in full-time ministry. We just
Yeah.
happen to have different titles and places that we go every day.
Mhm.
You really make it clear that we're supposed to listen for Jesus and do what he says and just kind of obediently be a vessel for him. Leading upside down is that. And so, how do you kind of lead the community in walking that out well?
Well, so I feel like my job is to help the people that I'm interacting with move one notch closer to Jesus. And I also believe that's the goal that Jesus has for us as believers. We're all trying to help the people that we interact with move closer to him. I believe that's the objective in Acts 1:8 when he says we will be witnesses. It's more a statement of fact. And so I have to be good at helping each person move a little closer to Jesus. You work for Jesus, you don't work for follower of one. And Tammy works for Jesus, and Dale works for Jesus. And you're currently assigned to accomplish some goals for follower of one. But in the end, your boss isn't me, your boss is Jesus. And if we can do that really well, the world is going to go, who are these people? And then we get to say, well, we're different because of who we follow.
And as you were saying that, I was thinking of some of the tough conversations we've had during leadership meetings, right? And there are hills that I'm willing to die on, and there are other ones I'm not, right? And so,
Yeah.
because Jesus is my boss, not you, essentially, I really have to respond and come to the table like Jesus, which is why I pick my battles wisely. And which is why sometimes we have to have a really hard conversation because Jesus didn't shy away from conversations.
No.
He didn't.
No.
He knew
Yeah.
the other person, he knew how to have the conversation. And sometimes I get it wrong, sometimes you get it wrong, but it circles back to humility. When we get it wrong, Jesus is our boss, and we have to honor our boss by making it right. And so we go back and make the apologies or try and fix it.
Yeah. And if he'd have wanted somebody good, he better have gotten someone else because all he got was me, you know?
Well, as you've been, like I said, walking this out for many, many years, what is the most important thing to you about leading upside down?
I think the most important thing is uh, the joy and the peace and the freedom that I get knowing that I don't have to be perfect. What I have to be is pursuing Jesus. And so my mistakes are even baked in. My screw ups are kind of baked into the plan. Like I say, if Jesus had wanted somebody who wouldn't make that mistake, then he should have gotten someone else. Because if anybody knew the kind of mistakes I was going to make, it's Jesus. And so I have this freedom. We get to screw up, and then we get to try it again tomorrow.
Well, that's exciting because perfection is overrated.
Absolutely.
And for those of you who struggle with perfection, I promise you, when you release that and let it go, life becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
So we could talk for like hours about all kinds of subjects. What is it that you think, in terms of leading upside down? What are the steps that people can take to learn to do it better?
Well, so I think the first step is to ask for guidance. Ask Jesus for guidance. He'll bring people along to help. He'll also provide opportunities and give you ideas. You'll see new things in Scripture. Um, I think the other thing is I'm always trying to find the highest objective. And the highest objective to me, this is part of the reason why I really like working for Jesus, is everyone else's eternal status. That, my kind of, when I first started getting serious about this, I came up with a 6-word kind of mission statement, and that is elevate purpose, mobilize people, instigate change. And I'm trying to help people attach themselves to their highest purpose, because the higher our purpose is, the closer we are to Jesus, the closer we are to living for him being glorified, and it benefits the other people. And so then I get to concentrate on what's the highest, best good that can come out of this situation. What in my imagination is the greatest thing I can imagine? And I have the freedom to pursue that because Jesus is able to do exceeding abundantly beyond all that we can ask or imagine. And so it gives me freedom to pursue the highest cause. And, that's often got to be in the best interests of the most people. And it's just, once again, I come up with some crazy ideas. Generally, I credit those to Jesus. I want to be listening to him and listening for those crazy ideas, and then give him the credit when things go well, because it's exciting to live that way. Did that help? And did that answer your question?
Sure. And the flip side of that, of course, is even when we're doing the right thing, even when we're on the right path, even when we're moving in the right direction, sometimes we get shot.
Absolutely.
Sometimes things just don't go well. And leading upside down in those environments and those seasons is really, really hard. And I know you've had a couple of those seasons throughout your career. Why don't you
Mhm.
share a little bit about how walking through super, super difficult, uh, persecution type moments leading upside down, how that was for you and how you did that?
Well, I think often the most difficult times, most of the leading that I'm doing when I'm leading upside down in a difficult time is I'm leading myself. I'm not listening to the voices in my head, but rather I'm having to remind myself of the story, remind myself that this is better than it looks. I've been fired twice and I've been laid off 3 times in my career. And we struggle with different things in our family, uh, but often what happens is the leading upside down is reminding myself what I know to be true about God and what I know to be true about Jesus, so that I can be what our family needs, or so that I can be what my next employer needs, or so that I can do the things that are necessary for me to be a good father or husband or grandfather.
So, is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up in terms of leading upside down wisdom or any sort of stories you think would help the audience?
Well, I actually want to invite the audience to write their own story and tell you about it. I mean, I think Jesus has, there's 7 billion people on the planet now. There's 7 billion stories being written. And when we connect to Jesus, he writes that story. And the story doesn't get written unless we connect to him. And so there's so many other stories out there to be told. And they're you figuring out how to live this. They're you figuring out how to lead upside down. They're you attaching yourself so closely to Jesus that you're available to bless anybody that you interact with. those kinds of things are exciting to me. I think the crazier our world gets, the easier it is for Christians to be able to make a positive difference by just simply asking Jesus, okay, Jesus, here I am. What do you want me to do next?
And the stories that we hear, one of the things that you don't know about, audience, is that Mike runs marketplace mission trips, which are just virtual trips that are basically inserted into your everyday life. Like, you don't have to go anywhere. You just get to show up and listen to Jesus all day.
Yeah.
And it's a structured experience. And we get to do these several times a year. And when we gather all the trip participants during the actual experience and we hear the stories, it is amazing the way Jesus shows up in such creative ways because of the different things that are happening or the people that are on the trip. I'm trying to remember a couple of the stories, but Mike, why don't you share one or two stories that you remember, and then I'll share one or two as I start to think about them.
Certainly we had, so we, one of the stories I like telling is we had a lady who was, she was worked for a law firm, and she just started praying for the other lawyers in this office. She was not a full lawyer, but she was doing work helping the lawyers. And she started praying and finding out that one of her lawyers in her office's wife was dying. And she ended up getting opportunities to minister to them and to make a difference in their lives and to pray for them and to pay attention to them. And God just made different things happen. Another story that I love telling her about is about 3 consultants who came together in a city, and they're with a large global consulting firm. They probably would never see each other again. And the one consultant, other than our mission trip participant, there was one consultant who was a believer and one who was an atheist. And that other believer ended up leaving the job early. And so to the end of the job, our mission trip participant ended up getting an opportunity to minister to and provide a gift to this other person. And this other person asking about the gift ended up getting an explanation about the gospel. Now, we don't know that that other person necessarily trusted Jesus, but our participant felt so excited because instead of just being a consultant that week, they were a consultant and they were an ambassador for their faith. And so you realize that being this representative of Jesus is part of what we do when we're paying attention to him and doing our regular job. Those are two of the stories I like to tell.
While you were talking, I was remembering Amy's story. Amy was a teacher, and when she went on, I think it was the first or second mission trip, I can't remember which one it was, but she felt the Lord prompting her to start a Bible study on the school premises for the teachers. And, you know, she was nervous about it. She wasn't really sure, but she did it out of obedience. And as the teachers started learning about it, you know, some were participating, others didn't want to have anything to do with it. And it didn't matter. But the crux of the story and the important piece is those teachers that started attending this Bible study ended up developing a community of support and encouragement. And this was during the COVID, I think, season.
Yes.
And if Amy had not started that Bible study for those teachers, they would have had so much less encouragement and support and help, and just spiritual covering for their situations. And they went on a retreat together and had the best time. And so Amy really is thankful that she said yes, and so are the other teachers. And that,
Yes.
again, is leading upside down. I mean, Amy doesn't have the leader title, but she led in terms of an initiative that ended up blessing everyone involved. So it's not
Yes.
about your title, it's about your choices leading upside.
Exactly.
So, Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate you being here. This was great. And for those of you, if you're interested in mission trips with Follower of One, I'll go ahead and put a link in the show notes and you can check it out. Our next one is going to be in September of 23, and then the one after that is going to be in November of 2023. And we'll have ones after that. So I'm excited about leading that and just being part of the whole experience too. So,
Yeah, thank
Mike,
you.
you're welcome. Do you have anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, thanks very much for having me. And I'm excited. Everybody connect with Kris. This is going to be a great podcast that'll help you take control of your own career and your own life and start making a difference, making an eternal difference.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. All right, everybody. Well, if you have any questions or you want to talk a little bit, feel free to get a hold of me at my website, begintoshift.com, schedule a coffee and conversation, and we can chat a little bit more. And other than that, just lead upside down and have fun every moment of the day. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for hanging out and enjoying the Lead Upside Down podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And remember, wherever you are, you can lead upside down too, just like Jesus did. Feel free to reach out to me if you want more information or if you think I can serve you in some way. Just go to my website, begintoshift.com, and click on the coffee and conversation icon and set that meeting up. Have a fantastic rest of your day.